Penguin Random House Audio presents Losing Big, America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling by Jonathan D. Cohen. Read for you by George Newbern. For Shayna. Introduction. Kyle's bets were finally starting to pay off. In January 2023, his winnings from sports betting reached $11,000 thanks to a $1,050 payout on a Fresno State University of New Mexico basketball game, $2,725 on a TCU Los Angeles Lakers parlay, and smaller amounts on basketball, hockey, European soccer, and minor tennis tournaments. Winning made him feel invincible. He was gambling his rent money, but the stakes only added to the thrill of his bets and the glory of victory. When you're up, you think you can do it for a living, he told me, admitting that he fantasized about keeping his streak going, trying to win $500 a day and eventually using his winnings to buy a house. Over the course of the month, he placed bets worth roughly $93,000, ending January with a net profit of $4,000. Despite these wins, gambling had cost him. He was making $65,000 a year doing search engine optimization for a Denver marketing firm. But in the 2.5 years since legal sports betting went live in Colorado, he had been losing consistently, some months as much as $3,000. Money was only part of what he lost. Sports betting consumed him. If he was not watching a game to follow a bet, then he was thinking about past wagers, discussing gambling with friends he made through a Discord channel, or researching the upcoming slate of games. Working primarily from home, he would use a dual monitor setup and keep one screen devoted to gambling. In many ways, his life had two monitors, one for gambling and one for everything else. Family, friends, work, hobbies, dating, self-care, and so on. It was what I enjoyed in life at the time, he said. Gambling offered an escape from any problems he was facing. The only issue was that his escape was more stress-inducing than whatever he was escaping. Gambling left him just constantly on edge, never really had a peace of mind, which led him to alcohol to take the edge off. He had fallen into a rabbit hole where gambling took on a logic of its own, where the only rational thing was to keep playing. You lose a sense of thinking, lose your sense of thought of, okay, why am I placing this bet? In January, he and his boss disagreed about how to handle a new project. Under normal circumstances, Kyle would have simply let the disagreement go and done as he was told, but he was in the rabbit hole where circumstances were decidedly not normal. Given his recent winnings, he was also overconfident, certain of a financial future secured not through a salary but through college basketball parlays. So he complained a few more times than he should have and dragged his feet to finish the project. He was fired. Kyle was sure he could find another job quickly, but underestimated how difficult it would be to apply himself to anything other than gambling. Then, his hot streak ended. Using his unemployment checks, he placed at least 151 bets totaling $14,000 over the course of February, losing $2,300. He kept going, gambling multiple times a day, almost every day for nearly 6 months, resulting in a net loss of $7,250. With his mental health deteriorating and a void in his bank account, where all the money he gambled should have been, he decided that something needed to change. He moved back in with his parents outside of Wichita, Kansas. His career, his finances, and his life had been thrown off track. Gambling, he said, tore me apart. Over the last 7 years, versions of Kyle's story have been playing out across the country as Americans grapple with the rise of legal sports betting. In 2018, the United States Supreme Court decision opened the floodgates for states to authorize sports gambling. To date, 38 states have done so, most permitting gambling on any device with an internet connection. Polls indicate that between 20 and 40% of American adults have bet on sports, many doing so legally for the first time in the last 7 years. Between May 2018 and August 2024, Americans gambled $398 billion through legal sportsbooks, including $121 billion in 2023, more than they spent that year on video games, movie tickets, music streaming services, books, and concert tickets combined. On average, bettors have won back over 90% of the money they wagered, amounting to total 6-year losses of $33 billion. While casino games offer fixed odds and a predictable hold, the amount that will be kept by the house, sports betting is anything but predictable, with so many people trying to get action down on so many different possible outcomes. Sportsbooks charge players a certain percentage, a vig, for the pleasure of booking bets. Then they constantly adjust odds, trying to entice an equal amount of action on both sides of every bet. That way, whoever wins, the sportsbook keeps its vig and the winning bettors are effectively paid with the money of the losing bettors. Sports betting has long been a low-margin business, with a lower hold than casino games like blackjack, craps, roulette, or baccarat. But all those bets add up. Americans' $33 billion in losses represent revenue for gambling companies. This money is taxed, and sport betting has produced $6 billion in revenue for states, a sum that represents a small percentage of states' overall budget, but a rare source of governmental income that does not derive from direct taxes. The result of the nation's sports gambling boom is a crisis, an epidemic of gambling disorder and financial disruption, especially for young men. The primary cause of the crisis is a gambling system focused on generating profit for sportsbooks instead of protecting the well-being of sports bettors. As a 26-year-old white man, Kyle is in many ways the prototypical American sports bettor. Nearly half of millennials and 60% of Gen Z have bet on sports, including 2/3 of students living on college campuses. People between the ages of 18 and 35 are also the most likely to have at least one sports betting account and to bet multiple times per week. Gender is the other dominant predictor. In surveys, men are twice as likely as women to have an online sportsbook account and almost 3 times as likely to bet at least 3 times a week. Another important factor is race. Surveys find African Americans and Latinos are more likely to bet than white or Asian Americans. Most sports bettors are able to gamble safely. 83% of young people typically wager less than $50 when they bet. Only a quarter of all bettors have ever wagered more than $500 in a single day. Without question, gambling can be a fun pastime, a way to raise the stakes on any game. Kyle has tried a variety of illegal drugs, but notes that gambling on sports is still the biggest rush I've ever had. By putting money on the line, even just 10 cents, gamblers can feel in some way part of the action. That the game remains out of their control makes it all the more nail-biting. A little skin in the game helps. Make every moment more, according to the tagline for FanDuel, the nation's largest sports book. However, many bettors are simply not able to play responsibly. In 1980, the American Psychiatric Association added pathological gambling to its official reference book, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM. In 2013, the 5th edition of the DSM reclassified gambling disorder, its new name, as a type of addiction, the first behavioral, non-substance disorder to receive this designation. The APA acknowledged that gambling could change participants' brain chemistry in ways comparable to drugs or alcohol. Even before the 2018 Supreme Court decision, roughly 1 to 2% of American adults qualified as having a gambling disorder, with higher rates among adolescents and young adults. The National Council on Problem Gambling reports that, compared to all bettors, sports gamblers have twice the rate of problem gambling, with even higher rates for those who bet online. The legalization and expansion of sports betting, then, suggests some ominous arithmetic. A massive increase in access will, by definition, lead to a rise in the number of people with gambling disorders. Measures of problem gambling have indeed begun flashing red. Calls to gambling hotlines have increased dramatically since states legalized sports betting. For the first time, many of these callers are young people. The director of a problem gambling resource center on Long Island notes that teenagers and 20-somethings have become the #1 demographic for gambling hotlines. In one survey, over 20% of 18 to 34-year-olds and 15% of all adults said they knew someone who had a problem with online sports betting. A study from Australia finds that each problem gambler financially or psychologically affects 5 others, for example, through requests for money. So even a modest increase in the percentage of people with a gambling disorder will impact millions of people. An even more revealing data point is the number of people who have enrolled in self-exclusion programs.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?